Another fun sequence to put together is a 90-90 sort of Z-sit here with the legs, one shin parallel to the top of your mat, the other shin out to the side and the leg behind you. So we've got a little bit of internal rotation happening with the back thigh and that external rotation that we worked on the wall with the front thigh. So right here I'm trying to rotate my back thigh in a little bit, but also still sit down into my hips. And so depending on where your hips are tight, you might feel this sensation through the front of the back thigh. You might also feel this in the outer part of your front thigh. If you want to feel more sensation in that front thigh, usually walking the hands forwards will give you a little bit of that, and we call it pigeon in yoga, or that figure 4 stretch. You'll feel that outer hip stretch a little bit here. And you can just stay here, take a few breaths there, and kind of feel that front outer hip and thigh stretch. And then I like to go from here into a little bit of a twist. So taking my body and going towards the front leg. So now I'm twisting away from this back thigh. And you should feel a little bit of stretch, maybe through the lower back, the abs on that back leg and thigh. And if you want more sensation in the thigh, just take the leg back a little further. And then you just kind of deepen that twist using your breath. Using those exhales to pull the ribs back and in. And think of directing your inhales into the lower back, into that outer hip and thigh on that back leg. And holding for maybe 10 breaths or so, 8 to 10 breaths, until you start to feel like, all right, the sensation's kind of dissipated, it's gone away just a little bit, or you're ready to move on, right? We can't spend our whole session stretching, so we're gonna move on. And now, instead of just holding the static stretch here, we need our legs to be able to move. We need to be able to rotate our femur, our thigh bone in the joint. And so taking the hands out in front of you, we're gonna try to just bring a little bit of movement into this back leg. First, use your exhale to get set through the rib cage, right? So either make fists with your hands, or you can press fingertips down, but kind of get set through the arms, set through the ribs. And with very little movement in the lower back, you want to just lift that leg up a little bit. And you should feel that outer hip, that glute kick on, and then lower the leg back down. And then exhale, ribs in and back, lift the leg, and lower it back down. So we're just trying to create a little bit of movement there, a little bit of strength in that outer hip, and then lower it back down, right? And in addition to moving it up and down, right, we're gonna need to be able to rotate that leg. So we're gonna hold the leg up after 3 to 5, and then rotate the knee in. Might feel a little sensation in the front of the hip and thigh there. And then without moving the lower back much, we're gonna try to rotate that leg out. Rotate in, and I'm trying to hold on pretty steady through my rib cage and abdominals, and I'm bracing there just a little bit. Foot down, knee up, and then knee down and foot up. And foot down, knee up. My whole body starts to shake because it's not easy to do this. And after about 5 or so rotations, it's nice to take that leg, bring it around, and kind of shake it out, let it stretch. And then usually I just like a little hamstring stretch after this, a little lower back and hamstring stretch. You can just fold over that front leg. And take 5 to 10 breaths there. If you flex your foot a little bit, you'll get a little stretch into the sole of the foot, into the calf. And then moving on to the other side. So just simply bringing those legs around. And again, we're not symmetrical, so you might sit on this side and have to adjust the legs just a little bit differently to feel your hips pressing into the floor. And if you can't get your sits bones close to the floor here, you can always prop yourself up on a block. so that you're seated. Show just this variation on this side, so that your sits bones are actually in contact with something on the floor. So you can prop yourself up here on a block so that your hip bones are actually touching the floor. I don't necessarily need to do that, but you can use a towel roll or something else rolled up underneath you to get the hips a little closer to the floor. So right here I'm working to internally rotate that right thigh, and that left hip is rotating out. And then I'm going to just walk my hands forward a little bit and fold over the front leg and take about 5 to 10 breaths here. Think of pulling the ribs back and in. And again, you can fold further forward than what I'm showing. I feel plenty of sensation in my left hip folded here, right? I'd rather see you fold less and keep that sensation and keep a little bit of core control than just plop over the leg. So I'm keeping myself propped up just a little bit more because I can square myself off and feel my core activate just a bit more there. And then you walk your hands in and then twist just a little bit towards that front leg. So walking the hands out slightly. And now that's bringing a little more sensation into that back thigh. And again, you can take that leg back just a little bit further to deepen that stretch there. And we're adding just a little bit of rotation and twist through the rib cage. And taking about 5 to 10 breaths in this position. And again, you can fold further forward over that leg. Sometimes it's even nice to use that block as a little bit of a prop. If you've got something you can prop your forearms on. So after a few breaths there, we're going to try to bring a little bit of strength back into the hip. So we're going to take the hands further out is going to be a little easier. So if your hands are way over here, it's going to be easier to lift this back leg. Otherwise, round the knee somewhere. Slightly turn towards that side. You're going to use your exhale to pull the ribs in and slightly lift that back leg up and then lower it down. And exhale, lift, and inhale, lower. And I'm trying to keep that leg where it is, not letting it come forward much more than it already is, and just a little lift and lower it down, using as little momentum as possible so you're not swinging your body around, keeping the core and the torso in the same spot, and just a little lift of the leg. After you've lifted it about 5 times, add a little rotation. So bring the knee up and the foot down, and then bring the knee down and the foot up, and rotate up and down. And again, trying to use as little momentum as possible, keeping the core relatively locked in as you just bring a little movement into that hip and thigh. And after about 5 rotations, you're usually toasted. At least my hip is done then. And then you can fold over that leg out in front of you, just letting the hamstring kind of stretch a little bit. If you flex your foot again, you'll maybe feel a stretch through the sole of the foot or into the calf. And taking about 5 to 10 breaths here, and then coming up out of the stretch. So we've gotten both internal, external rotation, movement and rotation of the femur, a little bit of hamstring stretching, and all of those can be done from that same position. So it's kind of an effective way to target the hip with one position and just changing the sort of the direction of the body and the direction of the legs.